All right, how is this one for a career switch story? This guy went from flying helicopters to becoming a software developer. So, my guest Mike Akins shares his story from making that switch from the army, flying helicopters, teaching flight school, and then going into programming. I think this is a super cool career switch story. I really appreciate him sharing his perspectives on becoming a software developer, going back to school to learn about software development, and how this was a very unique and fortunate opportunity for him to be able to pursue. So I think that you're really going to enjoy this one. So please sit back, enjoy, and I'll see you next time. Okay, Mike, do you want to kick us off and give us a little bit of background for how you got started? And you can go back as early as you want or kind of start
Sure.
from.
Sure. So I was going to Oregon State University in 2001 and joined the Army out of there and spent 14 years on active duty. After a little stint in the National Guard, I was an officer and a helicopter pilot, and I did that. I got out of the Army in 2018 and taught flight school for the Army for about 3 years down in Alabama, but didn't really like it down there. I also didn't really particularly enjoy teaching flight school. So we were just kind of looking for what else I could do and
Mm,
brainstorming and just got the idea to go back to school, move back up to Corvallis, Oregon, go to Oregon State University and study computer science. So I've
awesome.
been
So
doing
you
that and spent the last 2 years working at the Center for Applied Systems and Software at Oregon State, which
cool.
give students a chance to work on real world projects on a part time basis. You can do full time when school's not in session and everything. It's just been a great opportunity and having a lot of fun.
That's awesome. So you're telling me that flying helicopters wasn't the coolest thing ever and you wanted to do something else?
Well, I did enjoy it. I enjoyed it a lot when I was in the Army. That part was great. I was getting to the point in the Army where uh, reaching a seniority level where flying wasn't going to be the primary thing,
I see.
and then teaching flight school on the other side of that wasn't my favorite. There were a lot of opportunities for the airlines and things like that, but that didn't really appeal to me. And the other
Mhm.
part of it was just a lot of time away from home. So,
Okay. I can definitely see that being a huge factor that's not so great. Helicopters, cool. Time away from like
right,
everyone you know and love, maybe not as cool. So
right.
Um, cool. Okay. So, what I don't know if there's like a particular moment in time or anything, but when it came time for like the software side of things, like what was that kind of like clicked for you?
I was actually thinking about that leading up to this, and I'm not sure what led me to it, but somewhere along the way, I got in my head to purchase this set of tutorials. And I don't know that
Hmm,
the company really does it anymore. They're called Learn Enough, and their philosophy was you first start on the command line. And so you would do just getting around your computer on the command line and then some basic scripting at the end, and then a text editor, and then Git, and then you would start doing HTML and CSS. And as I got into working through that progression, it just clicked with me and I really, really enjoyed it. And so when I was kind of thinking about what I could do outside of flying helicopters, computer science just jumped right out to me because I think I attribute it all to just that set of tutorials. It's really interesting.
that's awesome. Yeah, because I know like when I've talked to a few different people for like career switching, sometimes it's like come up at work where they're like,
Right.
"Oh, I'm doing something at work," and someone I don't know whether it was like setting up email campaigns or had to touch the website or had to go do something. They're like was kind of became the person who had to do that, and then over
Right.
time like oh wait, I could do more with this. So I find like that's a pretty common pattern. So super cool to hear that you got exposed through like like a learning opportunity like tutorials or course, whatever it happens to be, and then actually that like really convinced you like this is pretty cool stuff. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. Cool. um Okay, so switching careers is a pretty like scary thing. Um,
Yeah.
now I know, and you kind of just walked through it a little bit, but was that something like for that experience for you? Did it seem like an obvious thing that had to happen, or was it like the decision making process? Was it like were you on the fence a lot with it, or were you like, no, this is something that I really need to go do this, and I'm driven to go make that change?
Yeah. Um, I think what a lot of it was wanting a change
Mm,
and trying to figure out what that change would be. The job that I had contracting teaching flight school is a lot of people love it and it's great and the hours can be amazing and the pay is very good, but it was just a little too repetitive for me and I felt like I was too young, and I still had kind of too much more to give to kind of start going in this kind of repetitive cycle of teaching, and it wasn't my favorite thing to do. So we started looking at things. Now, none of this would be possible if I have some continuing income from my time in the military, and if it wasn't for that, I just this wouldn't be happening. Like, because
Oh,
that's
good.
what's
Okay.
facilitating this whole thing. So I've got that. I've also got the GI Bill, which is paying for school, and so I mean, if it weren't for those things, we wouldn't be doing this right now. But the because we had those, there was an opportunity on the table. We made some good decisions earlier on financially, so this was something that I could do and was
Mhm.
interested in doing, and wanted to do it. I like I say though, if just practically speaking, that greased the skids and kind of made this possible and opened up the possibility, and then that became really compelling because I had the ability.
Right. And that's a really good point to call out, actually, because, for anyone who's listening and watching, it's like everyone's going to have different opportunities, different, courses of life that they're on and stuff. So, um, good point that in your particular case, you had, I want to, I don't know, like luxury, I feel like is the wrong word, but
I
you
think
had,
I would call it that.
okay, yeah. So you had like at least the luxury, like let's say on the financial side, to be able to say,
Right.
I want to be able to do this and I have the means to do it. Whereas
Yeah.
maybe some other individuals, it's like they're kind of contemplating, I think I want to, I think I need a change, but like, how can I make this happen? Right.
Sure. It would have had to have been a much more deliberate thought process going into it. And especially now, I mean, the world's completely different now in terms of being a junior software engineer than it was even when I started. So, I mean, that's a big consideration. So it's certainly, something that took a lot of planning, and again, in my ability, I do have the luxury of having some resources to make it happen.
Right. Yeah. And I guess on that note, like what, from your perspective, and this is going to be a loaded question with probably many different angles to cover, but in terms of how things have changed for juniors, like what are things that you observe? And like I said, there's probably a whole lot to cover, but I don't know if you
Right.
have like, yeah, like top of mind on that.
Sure, it's nerve-wracking to be graduating into this market right now. While I do have some resources, they're not unlimited. I do
Mm,
need a job. I do need to be making some income, and it is a little bit nerve-wracking now. I think what I've seen in terms, so I've had this part-time job now for 2 years, and so there's other students that are in different stages of their completing their degree. What has everybody who's gotten a job out of there has gotten it from internships or family
okay.
connections. Um, so the internships have been what I have seen from my point of view has been successful in getting people out there. So if you can get those, that's a huge leg up for anybody that can land those. Um, Outside of that, it seems very competitive. You hear the
Mhm.
stories of people putting in 300 to 500 applications to get 2 interviews, and so you've got to find a way to stand out, and then you've got to find a way to just kill it if you ever do get in front of somebody for an interview. So I think there's a lot going on from that perspective, and I think the other thing along with that is the people I work with at any rate are don't seem very picky about what's out there. They recognize the reality, and they want to get out there, and they have aspirations, but they also realize they're also realistic in knowing that to start out here, the most important thing is get out there and get into something.
Yeah, and that's a like a bunch of really interesting points there, right? Especially that last part on getting started. Like, don't get me wrong, I think people should absolutely have goals in mind. You should have things that you want to, strive for and achieve. And I think like I encourage people to do that. But yeah, I think the most important part is being able to get the job in the like get your
Right.
foot in the door, start working. And I say that because I think one of the biggest challenges I see, and when talking with people or hearing their challenges, is like, well, getting that first job, it's like I don't have the experience. I can't, like, I'm competing against everyone else without experience too, and like we're all at the same spot and there's so many of us. So how do we, like, once you're in, now you're at least accumulating what you can call, like, real world experience. But it's
Right.
also to your other point about internships. I don't know if people talk about this enough. I have a like my experience. I was very fortunate because I went to a university in Canada that was the program was a co-op program. You had no choice but to be in internships.
Okay.
It was based on that entirely. I had 6 internships in 5 years. So
Right.
like most of not most of my time, like almost half my time in school was in internships, but I honestly can't imagine not doing that.
Right.
This was many moons ago, like over 10 years ago now, and I still feel like without that, even at that time, I don't think I would have felt comfortable. Um, like it's a weird thing. Like I was in school and they kind of force you into interviews like in your like second week.
Right.
They're like, you're going on an internship 4 months from now, so you have to start interviewing now.
Right.
Um, and that was awkward. It was awkward every single time. And it was awkward when I graduated to interview. And I can't imagine like, having zero experience even going through the interview process or putting your
Right.
resume in front of people. So for folks that are listening and watching, like if you have internship opportunities, I, very much encourage you to try and find
Yeah,
those.
definitely. I'm unfortunately not able to. So my I'm a dad, and so I can't really relocate for the summer to
Sure,
go
yeah.
to an internship. So I work at my job, and I honestly it was interesting what you said though, because I was thinking the same thing when I first got this job working part time, actually building things. It dawned on me that I would be have been promptly fired from my first job if I had not done something like this
Okay.
because it was I mean, when I first started the degree program, I thought, well, I'll learn how to build software, but that's not what a computer science degree is about. It's about exposing you to this myriad of topics, and you can dive into some of them. And yes, you do build some software, but it's not about working on real world projects. That's not what a CS degree is for. And I didn't know that starting out.
Hmm.
Um, and then when I did get this job and started actually building, I mean, it exposed me to things that I didn't know about, that I wasn't aware of, entire practices for working as a team. And they do try to teach you these things. There's only so much they can do in a school term, as far as teaching you how to work as a part of a team, as far as I mean, just simple things like having a Git branching strategy. That's something that we covered in one class of my entire major. But you have to do it every
Something
single
you use
day
every
at
day.
work,
Yeah.
and it's really interesting. And that and just the opportunity to work. So we do all kinds of things, but we primarily work in C# and .NET for any backend stuff that we do at work, and it's we you don't cover in any of the classes that I've taken at any rate, we don't cover object oriented programming to the degree that you would need to know to be a C# developer. So you first show up and people are talking to you about a repository pattern and dependency injection and things, and you've never heard of these things before. So it's the I've learned at least as much at work as I have in my entire degree program. Um, so it's been an invaluable opportunity. I unfortunately don't get the connections that you would get in an internship where you go to maybe one or two different companies over the course of
Sure.
a summer, but the experience, I honestly can't imagine doing without it. I would be starting off my career on such a bad foot if all I had was personal projects. So absolutely, I know not everybody can get an internship or not everybody can get a job, but if you can, really like put as much effort as you possibly can into getting one of those opportunities, because it's like I say, I really cannot imagine what it would be like if I just entered the workforce and all I had done was build a to-do app and gotten my degree.
Yeah, I think your sort of experience with the computer science degree. So I went for computer engineering, and it was I'll put it this way. In computer engineering, we were in like under like applied science technically. So at the University of Waterloo, there's like an engineering department. Computer
Hmm.
science seems very similar to computer engineering. Computer science was in the math faculty.
Oh, okay.
Math. Like that's how, just for like for people to understand, like when
Right.
we're saying computer science, it's like it was literally under math.
Hmm.
And I don't like math. I can't imagine if I was going to school and it was like, hey, everything you're doing is going to be math. There was a ton of math in my degree and it sucked. I used to be like good at it in high school, and then I
Hmm.
woke up in university and it was the worst. And there's so many other topics that are covered that aren't just the stuff that you really need for when you're working. Like I had a bunch of physics, I had a bunch of chemistry, I had a bunch of math. When I was finally doing computer related things, it was almost like the theory behind like
Hmm.
why they had some of, early processor designs and stuff like that. It I remember each term being like, why am I doing this? And then I would go on an internship and I'm like, this is why I'm doing this. Okay.
Right.
And then back to school and I'm like, why am I doing more calculus? Like I can't imagine doing this at work. And then would go to work and I'm feeling better about it. So it was just this constant cycle of like everything I'm doing in school, it really doesn't feel like it's the stuff that I'm like seeing at work. So I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
if I finish this and I get my degree, at least I know that the work that I should be doing like is what I like to do. Because if it looked like
Right.
school, it wouldn't be for me.
Right. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, and I had an oh, so go ahead.
Oh no, that's all right. Go ahead.
I had another question that I wanted to ask you about the about schooling, and like sort of that experience of like going through, and maybe it was really just like on the balance of like topics. Did you find that? So you mentioned that not all of it was necessarily like what feels like kind of like real world experience, but
Mhm.
in computer science for you, was it like a bunch of like math, or did you at least get to focus on like what seemed like more computer things, like more programming things, but maybe less practical? I don't know, maybe that's a way to put it.
Right. There was a lot of, so there's balance between the math. There's obviously a series of math that you have to do. I made the mistake, I hadn't taken a math class in 20 years, and I made the mistake of trying to test as far ahead as possible. And so I crammed and got myself into math that I had no business being in. But I had to complete all that through integral calculus and discrete math and those kind of things. So there was plenty of that. And then the computer science topics, they range from the very practical to the more esoteric. So, like a programming language fundamentals, where you kind of write a very limited programming language by the end of it. It's really interesting, really eye opening, not necessarily applicable to what you're actually going to be
Mhm.
doing. Same, it's some of them were pretty challenging. I found so we had a operating systems too, where we actually work on that little MIT kernel that they give you. That was very challenging for me. We had a database. It was database management, but what it really was writing the search algorithms that a
Mm.
database would use to do their queries. So a lot of really challenging stuff that wouldn't be things that you would probably do in a job, but were valuable for kind of understanding the fundamentals of just the field as a whole. And then again, like almost any degree, of course, not all of it are going to be things that you're going to want to do. So I just finished a parallel programming course, which I
Okay.
found completely fascinating, and will probably, won't be things that I'm actually doing. But it's fine. I mean, that's part of the deal. It's just part of what a well-rounded bachelor's degree is about. So I thought, there's some everybody's going to have their favorites, and of course, there's two or three professors that everybody wishes you could just take a whole degree from. But
And
we
then two
had,
or three that you wish you never had to meet. Yeah, but
yes, of course, of course, and they're well known among the students. But it's it's been a great experience overall, a really great experience. Very challenging. I expected to be challenged. I did not. I underestimated how much I would be challenged. And I think I'm really grateful for that, because I think you kind of, I don't know, you get to a certain point in a career, a certain point in age, maybe things just, you know, aren't challenging you to the degree that maybe you need, or maybe that's good for you. And so to switch careers kind of forced that. And that was kind of nice, actually.
did you find that motivating then? So, like, I know that and I guess for me, I would have been younger going through school versus like you, like kind of switching to do
Mhm.
it later. But I know that when things were challenging for me during school, it always felt like I was being defeated. And it was like, it didn't feel encouraging. I didn't feel motivated by it. It was
Mhm.
constantly like, why am I doing this? I don't want to do this. And just like kind of, it felt like I'm scraping by all the time. Then by the
Right.
time I was done, I was like, finally, I did it. I want to say at the time I probably felt like accomplished that I had succeeded, but at the same
Hmm.
time going through it, I wasn't like, "Oh man, this is challenging. I'm going to crush it." It was, this is crushing me the whole time.
Right.
But based on what you just said, I feel like that might have been like a different experience for you where maybe it was motivating?
I think it was both. I think I certainly had those times where it was, what did I do?
Mm,
Why am I here? Why am I doing this? Um, I, actually, the best way I partnered with I was given an exchange student partner for a group
okay.
project. He was from China and he was struggling a little bit with the language and the topics and everything. And we were sitting there talking, and he was just kind of venting to me and everything. And I was listening to him, and he was kind of expressing some doubts in the program. And I'm sitting here thinking, yeah, I felt all the same ways. But then he said, but when I get a function to work, I just get so happy. And I was like, me too. I was like, I do too. And I think we all kind of have that, especially in programming. And I think maybe
Mm,
that's the reason why you keep coming back to it, is it feels really good to solve a problem like that. And so you do experience those times where you're just like, I am an idiot. Why can't I figure this out? This is
yeah.
like, why can't I get ahead? But then you have those times where you do something and you figure something out, you solve a problem, and it feels great. And I really appreciate that about this field. I mean, it was similar in flying helicopters. Sometimes you would do something and you would do some maneuver and you'd be like, that was as good as it could be done right there. It wasn't very frequent, and maybe had that feeling just a few times, but
Sure.
there was. I think that's the kind of feeling that maybe keeps you going and pulls you through that time, because you know that it's going to be tough, and you know that there's going to be hard things. And even some of the ways that, looking back on it, the way they designed some of the classes, I remember distinctly now that they designed these classes. They would give you these assignments, and knowing that you didn't know enough to complete the assignment,
Yeah.
and you wouldn't know enough for about another week, but they wanted you to work on it now because they wanted you to jump in and get stuck and frustrate yourself. And then when you got to that point in class, it would really open up for you. And I didn't really recognize that at the time, and I wish they had just come out and told me that. But it was it it was a good experience. But of course, I certainly had those times where I just felt beat down and looking around. And I'm a dad, and I really jumped off a cliff for this thing. And what did I do? Yeah, I mean,
Hmm.
certainly went through those moments, and sure, still have them now, about looking ahead to the job market and everything, and seeing what kind of opportunities are out there now, and how many of them there are now compared to what it was even a few years ago. So sure.
Yeah, and like it's interesting too as you're explaining that, like in terms of how they design courses and kind of looking back on it. One thing that like I took away from school, like even though it was largely frustrating aside from internships, was it that was the time in my life where, this is going to sound really weird, but like I had to teach myself how to learn.
Right.
I think prior to that, I'm not going to say like, oh, it's because I was so smart. I feel like I just happened to be lucky in the way that things were presented to me in school, that
Hmm.
it lined up. And
Yeah.
so for me to do, well in elementary school and high school, I was like, whatever, it's lined up this way. And I happened to be able to do that. When university came, I felt like I was starting at zero in terms of understanding anything,
Right.
even
Right.
topics I might have crushed before. And I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And it took me my 5 years of university by the end where I was like, I think I understand how I learn now. And that's one of my, that and so like learning how I learn is one of my biggest takeaways. And the other thing that they emphasized, which was, it felt really hidden in everything, but in engineering it's really about analysis and trade-offs. And so trying to be unbiased, trying to look at all of the options, trying to do an analysis, weigh them out, that seemed to be like ingrained in like everything in my program. And I don't think I really realized that until I left, because the only way that my brain works now, and it doesn't matter what it is, everything I think about, I'm like, what are my options? How do I weigh these out? And it has nothing to do with programming, but those are things that came from school for me. But I don't think until I reflected on that, don't think I had any idea that that was happening.
That's interesting, because I honestly, I don't know that I have reflected too much on before starting versus after, and kind of just how my thought processes work. So that's really interesting. Yeah, that's something I'll be paying attention to, kind of
Yeah.
going
I
forward.
know it happens because I didn't pay attention to it until
Yeah.
like, like my wife will call it out to me and it's like yeah, that's just how my brain works. Or like I've had friends that are like, "Why are you doing this?" And I'm like, I can't look at things the same way." Um
Yeah.
there was something else you mentioned I wanted to piggyback off of that. Now I'm forgetting, but that's okay. Yeah, I really think that reflection was important because when I was thinking about school, I'm like, people would say like, "Would you do that again?" Or like, if you had to start now, like, how would you approach things? And I'm like, I don't think that you need to have a degree. Like some jobs will say it, and like even though they say you don't need it, but if you have it, I think that's great. But what I tell people you must, no. But I still wouldn't change what I did. Like I would go back, I would go look for an internship program. Like
Yeah.
that's exactly what I would do. So I don't think I would change anything. Um, yeah, I'm trying to remember. I had a question that I wanted to ask you that was kind of like a before and after kind of thing for school for you. Um, oh, it was this. It was imposter syndrome, so not quite the same, but I was curious because going through school, it sounds like based on what you were saying, you probably experienced at least a little bit of imposter syndrome. Um, can you talk, if you're comfortable sharing, can you talk about that a little bit, maybe versus what that looks like for you or looked like in school for you versus like in work?
Sure. Um, so I mean, I think everybody. I having a prior career, I had some experience with that in the past, especially I think in the Army and flying helicopters. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous how much responsibility you're given in your mid to late 20s to go command missions and take $40 million aircraft out and all these
That makes
things.
me nervous. Yeah.
When you look back at it, you're like, they let me do that. And I was actually in charge of people. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So you certainly have I had some familiarity with that experience in the past, and so now in my role as a student developer, I'm also a student mentor, and so some of what I do is when newer people are hired, I kind of explain things and show them things, and nobody comes in knowing C sharp and .NET, at least nobody I've worked with, and so you kind of walk people through some of those concepts and explain some things, and I think what I've found, what's an effective way for me to deal with it is to be really honest with myself and the person that I'm sitting across from, and just like, what, I'm not sure that I really understand this. And like, I
Mhm.
know this is the way that we do it. This is my understanding, but I think that's only about a 50% understanding. I don't think I really. I was explaining dependency injection to somebody the other day, and I was like, well, I mean, one of the main things is you have the separation of concerns, and it makes it so that you don't have to instantiate a new instance of a class every time you want to use this service. But there's way more to the topic than that. That's not it. But I mean, that was kind of, that's my understanding. And they ask some questions and just, answer what you can. And when you don't, you're like, I really don't know. Like, I don't know. I'm going to have to learn more. It's something that I need to know more about. But yeah, I certainly have it. And you certainly have feelings of just, of, of like, man, am I ever going to get this? Am
Yeah.
I, if I could get a job right now, could I even do it? Could I really do it? And I think some of what you see on that, and I don't think it's a bad thing to have those thoughts, because I've
Sure.
encountered like two kinds of people that are very confident in themselves. And the more rare kind are the people that they're really good at it. These people have been just tinkering around with the Raspberry Pi since they were 11, and I mean they're amazing, and they should have all the confidence in the world. But that's about one out of every 20 really confident people I've come across, and the rest of them, they shouldn't be confident. They're bad. They're really not good. At least at the student level. I mean,
Sure.
it's different. You're talking about a different population, but at the student level, I mean, it's people that really have a lot of faith in themselves and should not. Um, so I think if you're feeling that, if you're asking those questions of yourself, I think that's normal. Congratulations, you're a normal person. You're not one of those extremes, so it's okay.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good reminder, right? Like it is absolutely normal. I don't have like stats to prove it or anything like that, but I think it's very normal. I suspect that especially people that get into like software development, um, again, don't have stats on it, but I think that there's probably majority of people in software are probably people that are more intellectual and
Mhm.
probably enjoy like problem solving and challenges and sort of group stereotypically grouped into that kind of category. And I think in that group there are people that are very much like I like the challenge. I want like whatever the next step is, I want that. And
Mhm.
the side effect of that is that you keep falling into these scenarios where you have imposter syndrome.
Right.
And
Yes.
so it's like, hey, like, this thing is scary. I don't know it, but like, okay, like I'm here. We're going to figure it out. And like
Right.
you were saying, you end up solving problems and you like have this like this feeling where you're like, hell yeah, I did it. And you do that enough until you start going like, wait a second, I know this stuff now. But then you're already getting into the next thing where you're like, but this other thing I don't really
Right.
know, and like am I smart enough? And when it's career time and you're like you might be working on a project and you're the newbie on the team and you're like, I'm never going to know this stuff, everyone else is so smart, how
Right.
did I even get here? And then you stay there a little bit and you're the subject matter expert now, but they're getting you to work on a different project and it
Right.
keeps repeating.
It does.
So
It
it's normal.
does. Yeah. And the fast pace of things that change, especially if you're into the JavaScript world. I mean, I don't know how you could not feel like that at all times. Most of the students that we hire are pretty good JavaScript developers, and I'm working with one right now, and he's way better than me at JavaScript. He just got hired. He's a sophomore. He's way better than me at the JavaScript stuff. And so I'm just like, yeah, I'm supposed to mentor you, but how do you do this on the front
Yeah.
end again? So I think there's always some of that. Some of it's domain specific, but yeah, that's a great point. We said is the more you grow, the deeper holes you dig for yourself, and you're going to feel that more and more.
Yeah, so that's why like it is a good reminder that if you start to feel that way, it's not in my opinion, it's not a matter of how do I stop this feeling from ever coming up. It's not about how do I prevent it. It's just like acknowledging that it will always keep coming up and then learning like what that means when it's happening. It doesn't mean that you genuinely are like a stupid person and you'll never be
Right.
successful. It means like you are challenging yourself. You're probably in a scenario where you're going to be learning a lot and growing, and that's a good thing. So
Mhm.
even though it feels uncomfortable, like maybe don't like push it away and try to hate it. So
Yeah.
you mentioned something else too around like just mentoring people in general, right? And being able to teach people. And I thought it was interesting that the way you explain that is it reminds me that it feels like when you're trying to explain topics to people, this is like one of the best ways that you get to see like how well you understand something.
Right.
um, so you go through this process, and you could take like I would encourage people to try this genuinely. If you're like, I want to see like where I need to like focus my like whether it's attention at work to like learn up on a new
Mhm.
skill or outside of work for hobby projects, whatever. Try teaching someone something, and it doesn't have to be like another developer. Try talking to someone else who doesn't know
Mhm.
the topic, and if your like significant other is willing to listen to you about this, like great choice. And try to explain something to them in a way that they would understand it, and you will
Yeah.
quickly find how well you understand it.
Right.
So
I'm not saying I don't have a blog, but I keep wanting to do one, not because anybody would read it or anything, but just because I think if I force myself to take it seriously, that would be the primary benefit is that it would force me to think through things and force me to confront whether or not I really understand something as well as I think I do. Um, and that is absolutely one of the best ways to do it. And as you I think as an instructor pilot, one of the things some instructor pilots say is I learn as much from my students as they do from me. That's ridiculous. No, they don't. No, you don't. They learn way more from you than you learn from them. But the process of teaching them is instructive. And so I've got just a tiny bit of experience doing this in software, really not much. But obviously, I come from a teaching background, and that's a big part of it is explaining it. And at the very least, you'll catch yourself short and be like, ooh. I'm going to stop talking right here because I don't really understand this one. And then you go back, if you're a curious and motivated person, you'll go back and try to firm up your understanding and things.
Yeah, as long as you're not the type of person to pretend and be overly
Right.
confident and just
Yes.
let me make this up.
Yes.
Um,
That certainly happens.
yeah. So yeah, good to catch yourself when that's happening. Curious because you mentioned you'd be interested in writing a blog. Why haven't you started?
Time. It's been time. It's so between work and the credit load and being a dad, uh, there's only so many plates I can keep spinning
It's
right
totally
now.
fair. Yeah. No, I was curious because I wanted to say like literally the reason that we are on this call right now is because once upon a time I started writing a blog for the same reason. It
Yep.
was for doing engineering like management and trying to transition from being a programmer into a manager, and I said I need to start writing down stuff about this. I gave up over 10 years ago because I was like, no one is reading this. Why am I doing it? It was almost like I tricked myself. It was for the wrong reason that I wanted the feedback.
Right.
Um, and then, yeah, I picked it up again over a decade later. And I regret that 10 years of me not having that,
Yeah.
that process of let me just write down my ideas. Let me learn about like what I'm doing by writing it. So I just wanted to say to you, like, if you get the time, please do it because I
I
think it would be
really do
awesome.
want to, and I think there's value, even though you don't. I think it's easy to learn from somebody who's only a few steps ahead of you because that person, it's easy to relate to where you're at.
Yeah.
So just simple things that senior engineers like yourself would take for granted, like, oh my gosh, I just committed to the wrong branch. I pushed and committed to the wrong branch. What do I do?
Yeah.
That's something you've dealt with 1,000 times, whereas everybody else, junior developers are like, oh my god, I really stepped in it
Yeah.
here. What do I
I'm
do?
fired. Like time to go.
Yeah. Exactly. So I mean, there's just those kind of things. There's all kinds of basic, and that's actually what I've been kicking this idea around in my head for a while, and that would be the direction I would go. Is for me, I want to keep learning more advanced things, but I want to come back and focus on basic things
Yeah.
and really build that solid foundation. Actually, one of the kind of projects that I'm working on right now is probably not helping my employability, but one of the things that I realized about 3 months ago maybe was that I don't know how to build anything without a framework.
Okay.
Nothing. And so I was like, it would be an interesting challenge to if all you had was HTML, CSS, JavaScript, a programming language, and a database. That's it. No libraries, no frameworks,
Right.
nothing. And you have to build something, anything. It certainly wouldn't be complicated, and it certainly wouldn't be a way to actually build real world projects. But the process of doing that would be informative for learning how frameworks work and how they help you and what they're managing for you. Um, so one of the only books I could really find on the topic was, I don't know if you've heard of John Duckett. He's
I've
got these
not.
really
No.
nice he's got these really nice books. His HTML and CSS and JavaScript books are completely out of date now, which is a shame. But he just released 2 years ago, I think 2 or 3 years ago, his PHP and MySQL book. And that's
Okay.
exactly what it does. It takes you through the process of building a site using nothing but PHP and MySQL. And it's fascinating. It's really been interesting trying to work through that and, having to just, you spend a day building a router, which is a
One
solved
line.
problem.
Yeah.
It's a complete, and one of the things with especially the ASP.NET, it's a very thick abstraction layer.
Yeah.
And it's great if you know what you're doing. It's built around all these best practices, and if you know what you're doing, it's great. But if you aren't familiar with these best practices, if if you don't understand really the benefits of loose coupling and solid design principles and all these things, it's tough to approach that framework. And so it's really been instructive to kind of take it back and
Hmm.
try to walk things through from the beginning. But again, I don't think there's a lot of people that are looking to hire people to
Well,
build websites in PHP
what
with
I
nothing
wanted to say
else.
on that though is like I think there is a ton of value that personally a ton of value in that. Um, and I haven't told you this, but like before I went to university or whatever, I'd been programming for like another 5 years before that, 4 years, 5 years, whatever, something. And through like my own hobby programming, and that can like continue through university. All that I did, because I actually just really, I don't know, I'm super nerd, I guess, but I just really like to program. So as a
Mhm.
hobby, it would be building random things. But what
Yeah.
I did was exactly what you're saying. I would go, instead of taking a framework that already worked, I would be like, how do I go make that? It's
Yeah.
not effective. It's not effective at all for building anything,
No.
but it teaches you so much, because in your mind you'd go like, I think I see how this works.
Right.
I'm going to go build my own. And then you start building it. And then you start to realize how much goes into something like that, how
Yeah.
complicated it is, all the edge cases, all these use cases. And then you go, oh, that's why I should be using a framework when I want to go
Right.
build the real thing. So
Yeah, exactly. Because there's so many things that you could, there's just the multitude of things that you could mess up, or vulnerabilities that you could leave exposed, that frameworks handle for you is, you know, I mean, I'm learning a lot more than just about PHP. I'm learning about web development through the
yeah,
course of this book, and it's really, it's been, it's really been a great learning experience. So I wish there was something more like that in our education, but it turns out actually, if you choose the web and mobile application development focus in the computer science major, you get 4 classes on the topic. So there's only so much they can fit into those 4 classes.
yeah, that is pretty limited. But yeah, I personally think like that, like when people say like, oh, like side projects, what should I put on a resume? Like I can't just put another to-do app. Like I hear you. A to-do app is not going to on its own stand out and be shiny and make you
Mhm.
look different than someone else with a to-do app. But I said, like, from my perspective, if you use those projects to demonstrate learning, then you can do any app you want and talk about the things you learn. So you could do a to do app and you could say,
Right.
and just making this up, but you could say, like, I built my to do app and I wanted to have it backed by a SQLite database. And because
Mhm.
I was curious, like I ended up making it so that I had a facade layer and a plugin system and I could swap out the databases. And that way it supported Postgres, MySQL, and SQLite. That's a fancy to do app, and like you
Yeah.
can take anything and basically this is going to, it's totally ass backwards for software development, but you can take anything and overcomplicate it from a learning
Mhm.
perspective to teach yourself like
Right.
how to do things. No one needs a to do app that does that, but then you would
Right.
learn so many patterns and things that like,
Yeah.
oh, how did I have to get a common abstraction layer across all these databases? Well, maybe I use a repository pattern. Maybe I use Entity Framework Core, and that's I didn't know about Entity Framework Core. Maybe that's a good opportunity for me to use it. So I really encourage people for resumes and stuff in their side projects. It's like you can actually, in my opinion, build anything and then demonstrate that like for what you were learning, and I think that can work really well.
How do you communicate that what the learning objectives are? I mean, in a resume, you have pretty limited space to kind of explain your rationale, or you know, kind of what your objectives were for it. Do you recommend like a portfolio site for kind of explaining, going into more depth about the choices that you made
Yeah,
and what you learned?
I think so. So like I always tell people this, and this is all like this is my opinion. There's going to be, you know, the next person is going to say, "Nick, you're totally wrong. Like here's how it works."
Mhm.
This is my opinion from looking at resumes and navigating hiring and stuff like that. But I've heard people say, "Oh, like you know, keep the resume limited so that you can wow them in the interview." And I always say, if I'm not wowed on the resume, there is
Right.
no interview. So
Right.
the wowing needs to happen on the resume. That doesn't mean
Hmm.
you can't have a portfolio site. I do highly recommend that, because if there's enough candidates that are wowing interviewers, they're probably going to go to the portfolio site next. So it's all about like as much as you can on the resume that is impressive, then follow up with portfolios and all that. But in terms of like side projects to communicate learning, I would literally call it out as such. So like, you know, the project is to-do list app. Okay, like I and then you would say like build a to-do list app and kind of list the tech you use. So you know, build a to-do list app in Blazor and backed by a SQLite database. And then, you know, next line is like uh I don't know, something like learn. I'm terrible at doing this on the spot, by the way, but
It's
you know,
good.
like uh, learned like refactoring processes to be able to, and then you could say like introduce like a repository pattern to swap things out with a configuration and dependency injection to support more databases. So
Okay.
you kind of call out the thing that you were trying to accomplish and or
Right.
learn through that. In my opinion, that's a great way to load in technologies. So
Hmm.
as an example, you're mentioning like doing a lot of .NET building for school and stuff like that. If you were saying that, I'm just going to make this up, if you're like, well, I really need to go learn Go, I need to learn Go because I want to get a job using Go, but literally nothing I'm doing at school or like with the part-time job has anything to do with Go.
Yeah.
Okay, go build something with Go, like, and then
Right.
you just use that to call out that you're learning. If it was a technology or like a database choice, again, pick any project and kind of use it to stack in technology choices just to say that you have some exposure to it.
Right. We actually have a class. I'm trying to get approved to take it again called projects, where you get to link up with a professor, explain what you're trying to do. I got to take it because my professor that taught advanced web development was on paternity leave, and the other options weren't very good. So I found a professor that would work with me, and I actually built a project over the course of the term. And so we went from nothing to something. It's
Cool.
online still,
Yeah, yeah.
but it was really quite an experience. I'm trying to do it again. He's got a. I've been wanting to learn PHP, and I want to kind of experiment with Laravel. I think it would be a great little framework for side projects and stuff like that. And and he's got something. He's got something for the university that only the servers that it's on, PHP is the only language. And so he's been wanting to update it, but he doesn't know or want to learn PHP. So he's leaving it be. But I mentioned that, and he's like, "You want to do it?" It'd be
I've
great
been
for
waiting
me.
years.
So it's so anyway, if anybody is going to school, that's something to look into, because that was one of my best experiences over the course of this whole degree program was doing that project.
That's awesome. Yeah, yeah. Like I think that just kind of goes back to, I'm sure that type of thing is closer to a real world experience
Yeah.
building software, right? Not just the stuff that you have in your classroom. Um, there's a couple more things I wanted to touch on. There's one I want to talk about AI. I want to talk about AI, but there's one I'm just looking back at this list of topics that I see pulled over on the side here. I see something about Gen Z, and I'm curious.
Yeah.
Yeah, what has your experience been like with the Gen Z?
So I think the problem with being the young generation is you get slapped with the reputation of all the worst among you, and
Sure. Yeah.
I think Gen Z certainly suffers from that. Um, my experience, so we have a pretty competitive hiring process. I actually took part in it this last go around for hiring people, and I don't know how I ever got hired. These kids were way better than me. But so we maybe have a different kind of caliber of people that I actually work with on a day to day basis, and they're fantastic. They're competent, they're smart, they're for the most part pretty good communicators. I do think there's maybe a little bit of truth to the I don't want to say entitlement, that gets thrown around too much,
Sure.
but there's certainly an attitude of, I don't know, maybe expectation
Okay.
that maybe older generations didn't have. But it's tempered, and I think for the most part, if people, obviously people are looking to hire juniors, that's the age they're going to be looking for. I don't think if you choose well and you've got a competitive process, I don't think you'd be disappointed. I think I've been nothing but impressed with almost everybody I've worked with now in classes, and you get some people that maybe aren't quite as serious. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
There's a pretty, you get linked up with some people on some group projects. I've certainly had some of the people that want to let things go in let group work go until the very end. In that database management class, I we did not do so hot on the first project because he didn't want to start until 10 o'clock the night it was due.
Of course.
And
Yeah. It's a great time.
I don't have that luxury. So I've got a 9-year old. So I've got to keep banker's hours on this kind of stuff. But Yeah, from then on, I just did everything for the group for the entire rest of the term. So I have certainly have experiences, but like I say, I don't think it's difficult to tell those people apart. I think as far as putting like projecting those negative opinions on an entire demographic, I think is ridiculous. Because most of them, at least most I've worked with, have been pretty sharp.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I was kind of laughing when I saw it written down as like a potential topic to go through, and I'm thinking like, because we didn't talk about this beforehand. I'm like, I don't know,
Right.
is your take going to be that they're the worst people ever to work with? But
No, they're pretty solid. They're pretty
oh,
for the most part. Like I say, the ones, especially the ones that I work with, are pretty solid.
that's awesome. No, that's good to hear,
Yeah.
right? It's like it's I think probably in all of our hearts we probably know that, but it's like you said,
Yeah.
it's way easier for everyone just to be like, well, this generation, and just like,
Yeah.
take a paintbrush and you all get
Sure.
labeled the same way.
What I will say is, you hear the stories of people in third world countries that think Facebook is the internet. I think a lot of them do think Next.js is software development.
I have like, so without I don't have direct hands-on experience like sort of in the same way that you would necessarily with like with Gen Z, but I feel like my take on like, I don't know, the overwhelming majority of people coming into software development is like, it's like that
Yeah.
is all that it is. And it's like, to
Yep.
me, that's fascinating that it's like, it seems to be so focused on that. And I can't make the
It
claim that
is.
everyone thinks that way, but this is
Right.
my
I
observation of
don't
people coming in.
I do wonder what's driving that. So they all know React. Everybody learns React, and then it's just an easy step to Next.js, I guess. And then I think maybe because it's pretty ingrained in the startup culture as of now, and a lot of them do have aspirations to work in that kind of setting. They just gravitate towards it. And when you see your friends are working in that, and so they show you, and it isn't hard to get started, and especially now with the AI stuff, it's you can get something you can get something up pretty good pretty quickly. But, whether it's good is obviously a different story,
Sure.
but but the AI seems to be pretty proficient at developing helping you develop Next.js apps for sure.
Yeah.
So, but that
Yeah.
is, yeah, it's universal. And it's crazy because I still just have a rudimentary understanding of it, and they are so fluent with it. It's just like it's a little crazy.
Yeah.
So I do wonder if I'm missing the boat on Next.js.
Well,
Maybe I ought to spend some time with
I
it.
certainly am in a similar situation because you mentioned .NET. Like, everything I do is C sharp and
Hmm.
.NET, and it has been for as long as I can remember. And it's not that I don't know other programming languages; it's just that I am so much more comfortable with C sharp
Right.
that you take anything to go build, and I'm like, yeah, TypeScript is probably a better thing for that, but I'm going to use C sharp because I can.
Right.
Or like, I will find something that lets me use .NET because I just like am way more comfortable with it. I'm admitting that that's not a great way to approach things, but
Right.
that's just how I operate. So, but
Sure.
I kind of have a similar experience with the Next.js stuff, like stuff I'm building on the side in our front end. I'm like, I don't like touching it because it's not C sharp, and
Right.
but other people seem to get it really quick. But you mentioned AI, and I would say that my experience with AI, in particular in the front end stuff, seems to be really good. And I don't
Hmm.
know if that's because I'm so bad at the front end that it could
Right.
do anything, and I'm like, hell
Hmm.
yeah, this is the best. Um, but like, in terms of, I've used like Copilot with like GitHub pull requests, and just made like a one line issue, like, add a filter bar here and add the ability to sort on these
Yeah.
fields. No detail about how to do it, how to style it, what, like, how to
Right.
actually make that work with the data structures. Just does it, works
Yeah.
perfectly. Like, okay, like,
Yep.
it seems like it does a pretty good job for that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It does. I don't know. Maybe this is the old guy coming out in me, but I worry about pushing a commit that I don't understand.
Yep.
I don't like that. I don't feel comfortable with it. I I don't like it. I what I My approach to AI while I'm actually developing something has been obviously there's the code completions, but honestly, most of the time I find those annoying. Although sometimes they do give me something that was great that I didn't think about, and so that's very nice. I use it a lot for troubleshooting.
Hmm.
I think there's some things are better than others for that purpose. But I think what I've kind of landed on as my favorite use case for it is I've treated AI kind of like office hours with a
Okay.
professor. And so it's a chance to take something that maybe I don't understand or that I want to check my mental model on, and I can plug it into Claude or ChatGPT. I have a subscription to Claude just because that's the one I decided to buy. I don't know that there's much of a
Yep.
difference at this point. But so, you can paste things in there and say, this is how I think this works. Am I correct? And sometimes yes, and sometimes, kind of, you're kind of correct, but there's actually more to it. And then I can
Mm.
start asking questions and I start kind of having a dialogue with it. And I think that has been my favorite use case for it. Now, that's not a fast way to develop, but that's certainly not the vibe coding or how you would interact with some of the newer tools like Claude Code or the Gemini CLI and all that kind of stuff. I really haven't used any of those because, again, I think at the stage that I'm at right now, I don't see how it's going to benefit me in my
Mm.
career to just have a, a generative AI make things for me that I don't really get.
Yeah.
Um, I just and this is going to be kind of the needle that all the junior developers are going to have to thread is there's a productivity expectation, but you also need to learn.
Yeah.
You also are going to, at least for this foreseeable future, we're going to need to actually understand this stuff, and it's really easy to shut your brain off and just kind of let Claude take the wheel. Um, and I fail to see the benefit in that right now. Um, So I don't know. It's going to be tricky though for juniors in particular. I think seniors right now, it's a fantastic tool to make you more productive. You could do things and certainly wade into areas that aren't your area of expertise
Hmm.
to get something done, like on the front end. But it for juniors where we're still developing these mental models for everything for the back end, for the front end, and there's just new features like, hey, you need to incorporate this new auth system into this project, and it can be really easy to just like, cool, let's have Claude do it, and then it's like you have no idea how to do that again the next time around. So it's going to be a tricky thing. I like it, I appreciate it, but I've kind of tempered my use from it. And so right now I've got actually Copilot turned off in all of my editors, just because I want to focus really on learning right now.
Sure.
I still use it, but I prefer to use it like in the browser in more of the chat interface.
Right.
That's how I've gone about it.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. I can absolutely resonate with the like don't want to push code unless I understand it.
Yeah.
For like even some of those front end things I was saying, like I need to pull down the code. I need to try it. I need to like if I don't fully understand like maybe what the CSS is doing exactly, or there's some
Yeah.
weird nuance, I'm like, I want to at least make sure that I'm exercising it like manually so that I'm not like, wait a second, like that code path was never hit, and that's like a little surprise for later or something like that. I
Yeah.
need to make sure that I have something that I can understand, even when it is in a domain that I don't totally get. And
Sure.
if walking through it is not going to answer that for me, the best part about the AI with like that produced it is also the AI that can answer questions for me, right?
Yeah.
Hey, why did you put this code in here? What does this code do? And then it might
Right.
explain it, and I might go, why would you do it that way then? Like now that I
Yeah.
know what you're doing, why did you do that?
Right.
And then it might tell me something I didn't know, or maybe it'll do the typical, oh, you're right. Like I'm so wrong and you are so right. Let me
Yeah.
change that
You're
for you.
absolutely right. Yeah,
Yeah. Tell
and
me
that's
that
and
one
that's one
more
of the
time.
things that makes me nervous about it a little bit is because I know it's proven to be time and again that it's not going to come up with the best solution,
Yeah.
and so I have a difficult time. I don't know. I really I know this is the thing, and everybody's like, you're going to get left behind if you don't know how to do this. It's like, how? Well, you're telling me it's so easy to do that all I have to do is just type natural language in and I can build a web app, but also that if I don't do it right now, I'm going to be left behind. It's like, no, I'm going to
Yeah.
focus on learning as much as I can. And then certainly when I'm in a role, of course I gotta, I gotta put food on the table. So I'm not gonna eschew it entirely, but I need to, I feel as if it's very important to learn as much as I can, and use that to kind of augment or as a productivity boost and all that stuff. And then obviously to wade into topics that you're just not familiar with, and you can't be constant. We have the benefit at our work. We have these incredible senior developers that part of their job is to help us, and that's awesome. And that's not a real job though. It's not. I can't be constantly, hey, teach me how to do this thing. Like that's not how it works. There's going to be an expectation of independence there.
Right.
So it's a great tool for that. But as far as the actual use, yeah, it's just going to be a needle that everybody's going to have to thread.
And I can really appreciate the emphasis on that too, right? That it's like that it's not easy. It's you have the tool in front of you. It makes it easy to go use the tool and
Yeah,
neglect, like, or maybe I shouldn't even say neglect, like it could be accidental where you're like it's just convenient, and like then I
yeah,
end up bypassing a lot of the learning opportunity. So I think that convenience part is really challenging. People do have to balance it. I think
yeah.
like for myself, because I manage engineering teams and I don't code at work, I use AI at work differently, like trying to see how I can help in my current role. But outside of work, when I'm programming stuff, I'm trying to use it in all sorts of different ways. So love
Mhm.
using chat mode to be able to go back and design stuff. Someone recommended, and I don't know why I didn't think about this earlier, but like basically just use like audio mode so you can like talk. Like I use my phone a lot and just talking to my phone,
Okay,
so I'm not trying to like text to chat GPT or
sure.
something like, let's go
Hmm.
make this design. I just talk through it. Um, so I like that a lot. The autocomplete stuff works really well for me with Copilot and Visual Studio. I think because I have so many patterns that are similar, that like
Hmm.
when I'm going to code, it's just like you have this in 10 other spots. Here you go.
Right.
So autocomplete works well. Agent mode sucks. I have a
Yeah.
really difficult time with agent mode in VS Code and Visual Studio and Cursor. Um, Copilot with the pull requests is the best that I've used so far. I'm not just
Right.
saying that
I
because
just
I
started
work at
using that. I really
Microsoft. Like
like that.
it seems to me, it seems like it has the best balance between I don't have to be so specific with it and it still
Hmm.
does well. I've been
Yeah.
told by people like when I say agent mode's not working well for me, they're like, "Oh, you need to prompt better. It's your prompt. It's your prompt. You need to give it smaller things." And I'm like, if I have to spend that much time, I might as well just do it myself. So,
Right.
Copilot with pull requests seems to be that really good balance.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I'm trying out now, and it's not working out so well, but it's using like agents in like a swarm mode to get like 8 agents together and just be like, go build something. Um,
Yeah.
it so far is the equivalent to 8 really dumb agents compounding on the dumbness. So that probably comes back to me having to prompt it better. So, I do want to
Right.
take responsibility for that. But for me, this is all practicing with the tools because I'm hopeful if I just keep using them and leveraging them, but not like totally replacing my whole development process, that they get better. And then when
Right.
they get better, I don't feel like, oh crap, I haven't seen any of these things yet. So I'm
Yeah.
crossing my
Hmm.
fingers.
Right.
Cool.
But I
Well,
think like you're looking at it from the standpoint of being able to successfully evaluate code, and where other people are going to be out, or more junior developers, is we've got to get to that point.
absolutely. Yeah.
Um, so it's if we're just sitting there vibe coding our way to a senior developer role, it's not going to turn out well.
Yeah, you said it. I can't remember what specific topic we were talking about, but like you kind of mentioned like getting stuck, right? I feel like if you are using AI and all that you're doing is outputting code and you don't have those moments of getting stuck and being like, how does this
Right.
work? Like, how do I get out of this hole? Um,
Hmm.
if the only way to get out of the hole is help ChatGPT or help Claude, like that's not really it. You need to be able to have that critical thinking to go like, what the heck is going on? Getting
Yeah.
stuck on things is not ideal for productivity in the workplace, but getting stuck on things is amazing for learning.
Right.
So you kind of have to lean into that, even though it's uncomfortable.
Hmm. For sure.
Well, this is super cool. I really like getting to hear about your experience kind of going through this little bit of the Gen Z stuff as well. It seems like AI is having an impact for sure, but you're also being cautious with it, which I think that's a really good move so you can focus on the right things. Um and yeah, flying helicopters. I think that's so awesome. When's I should ask, when's the last time you have flown a helicopter?
2018, August, July of 2018 was my last one.
Very
So
cool.
I'm fully uncurrent and complete. I haven't even gotten my flight physical redone. So I really went away from it. So maybe I'll fly planes again. So I've never flown a plane in my life. So most
Flown a
people at
helicopter,
least do
but
that.
okay. Yeah, yeah, that's
So
awesome.
maybe at some point when I'm done with school and land that sweet senior developer salary, I'll start going out and renting a plane and flying again a little
That's
bit.
right. The first purchase, plane.
Yep.
Cool. Well, Mike, thanks again. Is there anything that you want to be able to say to folks? Not to put you on the spot or anything. You don't have to make a speech or anything, but any sort of shout out or anything you want to say?
I think maybe just Oregon State. This is a really special place. I really love going to school here. I'm from the Seattle area originally, so coming down here wasn't maybe in the normal course of things from people from that area. But this is a really special place. It's a great school, and in particular, Center for Applied Systems and Software is part of the software development group here at Oregon State. The mentors have just been incredible, and just a great place to work and kind of learn about this field as you're going to school.
Awesome. No, well, thank you so much for sharing. And again, I do appreciate the walkthrough for your experiences, and I think that's going to be really helpful for other people. So thanks again.
Thank you.